So I got one of those Retro-Bit Super Retrocade systems, and I definitely want to give it a review, but I am putting it through its paces first, and I figured why not do a review of one of the games on it to start off. I'm sort of familiar with the game already, having played the TurboGrafx 16 version quite a bit, so I figured, why not give it a go here, and without further ado, let's just dig right in. Vigilante is a not-quite remake, not-quite sequel of sorts to the 1984 arcade game Kung Fu Master, which is regarded as the first ever beat-em-up game. Programmed by Irem and distributed by Data East, Kung Fu Master was popular enough to be released as a launch title on the NES, with the name shortened to simply Kung Fu. In the years that followed, beat-em-ups grew to be quite popular, so one can most likely safely assume that's why Irem went back to the well and made this game. What they did, however, feels like not much more than a new coat of paint on Kung Fu Master. Like with his predecessor, you're guiding the main character along a single plane against waves of enemies until you get to the next level. Gameplay is pretty much identical, just the scenery and the enemies have a little bit more variety here, but compared to many of its peers of the time period, it just feels a bit primitive. The story of the game is just as bare-bones simple. A girl named Madonna has been kidnapped by a street gang of skinheads, and it's up to you to save her. This kind of story has been done a million times. At the end of each level, you see her hands reaching out to you from the back window of a van, but then the van speeds off. That's followed by a little cutscene and then on to the next level. Really, not much to it. Truth be told, there's really not much to the game as a whole. Just 5 short levels of walking to the right and punching and kicking at oncoming enemies from both sides. Many of which try to grasp at you to wear you down, others may attack with a weapon, just like in Kung Fu Master. The biggest change here is that there are more boss-type characters here, and most of the stages have mid and end bosses to increase the challenge. Another addition to the gameplay here is that you will get to pick up a set of nunchucks to help you fend off the enemies, which makes things a lot easier until you drop the nunchucks inevitably. Most of the enemies have patterns you can learn. Different attacks will be more effective than others on certain enemies, and certain bosses seem to lure you away from the end of the stage to run down the timer. It's also worth noting that the bosses will regenerate health, so you really want to try to dispatch them somewhat quickly. The proper way to play this game will be to work out the enemy's patterns and rhythm, but when playing this on some form of emulation like here on the Super Retrocade, or even a version of MAME or whatever you're using, it would be really just tempting to load up on credits and just brute force your way on through it. Whether you're going the cheap route or the well-practiced one, you can make your way through the game in about a half hour or so. Of course, if you're playing this like Irem intended, on an original arcade cabinet, it would require a lot of quarters, as the game is fairly tough. Earlier I said that the game was like Kung Fu Master with a fresh coat of paint. But what about that coat of paint? It's all pretty basic, but not terrible looking. The characters and even most of the bosses do seem a bit generic, but I've seen worse in other beat-em-ups, really. Compared to its peers, it's not as vibrant as Double Dragon or detailed as Bad Dudes vs. Dragon Ninja, but it still has a little bit of charm to it. Some of the sound effects aren't bad, but things like the bosses taunting just gets old kinda quick. And as for the music, it's mostly forgettable. If you're a beat-em-up junkie like me, taking this game for a spin at least once might be a worthwhile endeavor, but if not, you will probably get bored with it fairly quick. Not a hell of a lot to it. And this game was ported to a number of computer platforms and also ported to the Master System, and as I said earlier, the TurboGrafx 16. The Turbo version is probably the most accurate of the bunch, but it really hasn't seen any other ports or anything, or even like appearances on compilations until this thing right here, the Super Retrocade. Now, this isn't a game that's going to make you run out and buy one of these, but it's okay. It's not bad, but it's also not awesome. So, do I give it a recommendation? Unfortunately, no, but still, neat to see. Now let me throw things over to you. What old school arcade games that really haven't gotten a hell of a lot of attention do you think deserve a second look? Leave a comment down below. Hope you've enjoyed the review. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.